Something tells me that my previous video on when our friends talk too much might be more popular than this one when we say our friends don't talk enough. But this one is really important too. And technically, for all of us who do too much talking, there's also those of us who don't do enough talking and vice versa. And what we want in every friendship is for both people to walk away both feeling seen in a safe and satisfying way. And so, for both people to feel seen, they both have to have the space to self disclose and to reveal and to have their stories shared in order for us to receive them in a way that feels safe and meaningful and trustworthy and good and supportive to the other person. And so, for all of us who say, maybe I am the one who's more of an open book and I'm just so comfortable telling everybody everything, and my friends just don't open up as much with me, or they're just not as comfortable as I am. We sometimes feel like we need to fill that space, and we can because we have all kinds of stories, we have all kinds of fun things to share, we've got things going on in our minds. A lot of us are extrovert, and our brains we can process out loud in real time. And so anything that we're thinking, we can say, and we will, and we do. And our friends often leave our presence, and we might think they were so entertained, or they just find us so funny, or they just really love hearing updates on that big drama. And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't really matter how much they love our talking. If they're not leaving feeling more seen themselves, then this friendship is not going to be fulfilling and meaningful for them. And ultimately, for us, a friendship isn't just about us being seen. A friendship is about us seeing each other. Both people's lives are valid and significant and important and meaningful and interesting. And both people need to feel that. And so it's really, really important when we say, my friend, she just doesn't open up as much, or she's not one of those people that talks about herself, or she just doesn't really share those kinds of things. The bigger question is, am I a person who is safe and inviting for her to share those things? What can I do to hold more space for her to practice being those things? It's not okay for us to make an excuse and just say, oh, she doesn't really need that or want to do that. She may not have been doing that, or he may not have been doing that. And that just may simply be that that's the dynamic your friendship has taken. But it might be a friendship that they find themselves not wanting to, for reasons they don't even know, not wanting to interact as often, as frequently, because it might be wearisome to them to be learning all about us and us not learning about them. And so let me just have a few tips and ideas for those of us who are willing. And if you're watching this video, this is pretty amazing because it's easier to show up and to say, stop them from talking. I want to be seen. It's harder for those of us to say, what can I do to actually show up? We have less motivation to want to say, what can I do to show up and make sure that I'm a safe and inviting place for my friends to share? So if you have someone in your life that's not opening up a lot, your friendship will never go deeper, further, closer, more meaningful until you both know each other and you both feel understood and gotten. So here's a few things that maybe we can try together to help our friends feel safer opening up. First of all, recognize that when we have three requirements of relationship, I do a little triangle to show the positivity, the consistency, and the vulnerability. It has to start and end with positivity, meaning that nobody's going to want to confide if it doesn't feel good, if they don't already feel accepted, if they don't already feel like we're interested, if they don't already feel like we accept them, nobody's going to want to show up and open up. And then conversely, after they share that vulnerability, it needs to, again, feel good. It needs to go back to positivity where we say, thank you so much for sharing. And like, wow, I love learning that about you. I really love knowing that. My husband's best friend always says, I just want to know everything about you. And I'm putting that in the folder of Greg. And like, I'm just studying. I just want to know you. I want to get my PhD in Greg, I mean, how good does that feel? And so for us to be able to reaffirm to our friends that risk you took to share that story, thank you. I cherish that. I will remember that. And so we want to make sure that they feel gratitude and our gratitude and our appreciation for who they are before, during, and after. Like it just needs to be bathed in good feelings. The more it feels good to them, without them even realizing it, the more they're going to want to do that behavior. They're going to want to show up and be seen by you because it feels good to be seen by you. And so ask yourself, what can I do to be somebody who lets people know I am curious? I want to know you. I am interested. And so set that tone for saying, my job is to first and foremost communicate acceptance and interest and curiosity before and during and after this conversation, to hold space for somebody else to open up and be interesting. I want to know that. I believe it, and I will look for that. The second thing that comes to mind is that we can be much better at follow up. Asking, kind of basically like, tell me more. Some of us, and especially if they're practicing vulnerability, they often will tell themselves, like, oh, nobody's really interested in this, or, well, I don't want to bore them, or, well, I don't actually know if they're sincere in asking this. And so I know when people ask me a question like, hey, how's your book going? I'll just give the short answer first. I'll be like, good, good. I'm enjoying the writing process. And if they say, oh, that's great, and then they move on to something else, I'm like super glad I didn't share more because it would feel like too much, right? And if somebody said, oh, like, what about the writing process do you enjoy? Okay, now we've got a conversation. I would love to talk about it. I could talk about it for hours, but I need people to be interested. I need that follow-up question. I need somebody who's willing to say, like, ooh, tell me more. What's the hardest part of that? Or what part of that is energizing you these days? Or what are you finding to keep you sustained during that? Or is it hard to persevere? Like, ask questions, right? And just be curious. Show up with that curiosity again. Our invitation is to not allow their first little response to be the only response. That's probably them just kind of putting a fishing line out. And we want to say, yes, I received that. I love it. And I want more. So, what can we do to ask follow up questions? So, just be thoughtful to say, my temptation is to take this conversation and share something about me, but I'm not going to do that right now. I will do that. You need to walk away feeling seen too. But right now, I'm going to keep the conversation on this person for a little bit longer and just see what can unfold and see what blossoms. And so think ahead of time about just being somebody who's like, I am not going to take this conversation and turn it back on me. I'm going to practice asking a couple of follow-up questions. I'm going to say, tell me more. I'm going to lean in and I'm going to ask something that basically says, I love hearing that. What else have you got? And so let's do that for each other. And if it's a close friend, I actually think there's a space to have a conversation that says, I notice that sometimes we walk away and I've done most of the talking. And I love how well you listen, and I love how well you love me and know me, and it means so much to me. And I want to be that way for you. I really do, and I'm going to work on that. I want to be somebody who's like a safe place for you to share and to open up more. And is there anything I can do that would make that feel better for you or make it easier for you? And so I think that's a really beautiful thing for a friendship, to have the other person hear that we own that we notice that we see that, and that it's not okay with us, that we want to know them. And it puts a little bit of responsibility on them too, to say, you need to show up. And so what can I do to help make that safe? But it still is letting them know we're holding that hope. We're holding that understanding that this friendship matters to me, which means it matters that both of us feel seen. So I'm not okay being the star of this friendship. I'm not okay with this being more one-sided. It's really important to me that I know you because I'm interested in you. You're my friend. I love you. And so what could I do? Could I ask, does it feel good for me to ask more questions? Would it feel good for us to make sure that we start with you, or does that feel too much? Or would you rather me start, but then we make sure that we set a timer and I don't talk past that? Like, what can I do? And we can maybe throw out a few suggestions. I really want to be a friend who feels safe for you to practice sharing. I want to know you. What can I do to help make that happen? Is a beautiful, beautiful inquiry for somebody who we've known longer and we actually feel like, yeah, we should know more about them. We've proven ourselves to be safe, but maybe we need to change our pattern. And that's where a conversation where we kind of name it and own it can help change the pattern a little bit, change the expectations for both people and make it a little less amazing. I mean, a little like less awkward and more amazing, because then they actually note, wow, she does care. She's doing something about this. And then we want to be consistent, where we don't want to just say that and the next time just go and talk over everything, right? So we need to keep showing up reliably, willing to build a new pattern between the two of us so that it ends and we both end feeling more loved and more seen and more connected. And then I'm just going to say one last little tip. It's a hard one for some people, for some of us, but and then just be quiet. It's okay if there's some quietness. We can ask a question and we don't have to fill it right away. We can allow for a little bit more downtime. We can allow to say, what if we're just both sit here for a second and I'll let her open the next conversation. I'll let her think about what she wants to share. I don't need to solve that. I don't need to be the one who fills the silence. I don't need to feel responsible for coming up with stuff or deciding what the next question is we share or deciding what the next topic is. It's okay for me just to be quiet and say, "Oh, thank you for sharing." And like then just let it be quiet for a minute. Like you're thinking, and see if they open up with something. See what's on their mind, what they want to lead with. And so it will feel awkward. Some of that's a muscle that we have to practice building to be okay with silence. The more important thing, the value of the silence is saying, I don't need to be the one who manages this and leads this and facilitates this all the time. It's okay for silence if it means that it's two people who love each other and we're hanging out and I'm giving up the reins for a few moments of letting somebody else facilitate and lead and see what emerges. I trust that friend. I trust us. I trust this time. And so maybe it's allowing a little bit more gaps in the conversations to see what unfolds. It might surprise you, but you don't have to control it. You just have to be available for it. And so if you're watching this, it's a really beautiful gift you're wanting to give to a friend to say they matter enough that you want to see them. I know these are hard things to practice because most of us go into default mode, but I love, love, love that you're willing to say, if this friendship's going to be meaningful to both of us, then we both need to feel seen. And if we're both going to feel seen, then we both have to have time to self disclose. And so if we're together for an hour, in theory, now it doesn't have to be this way, but in theory, we should each be sharing for 30 minutes. And right now, it may not be that way. And so, what can I do to help make sure that I give space that feels safe and meaningful to my friend, to the other person, and that they know that I see them and that they leave saying, I'm glad I shared that because I feel more loved, more known, more accepted, more validated. It's a beautiful thing you're wanting to do. Bless you for doing it.